When I unlocked my front door after a grueling 36-hour shift at City General Hospital, all I wanted was a hot shower and something to eat. But what I found was a second refrigerator, sleek and modern, installed right next to mine. My daughter-in-law, Chloe, looked at me with that cold smile I knew so well. "This one's mine," she said, crossing her arms. "From now on, you buy your own food." That's when I noticed the yellow sticky notes on all the groceries I had purchased just 3 days earlier. My name wasn't on a single one. They had conveniently forgotten that they were living in my house without paying a single cent of rent. What came next made them wake up in tears. But before I continue, make sure you're already subscribed to the channel and type in the comments where you're watching from. We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. My name is Eleanor, I'm 64 years old, and for nearly 4 decades, I've been the head nurse in the hospital's emergency room. That day, my feet were burning inside the white shoes that were once new. My body was a map of aches: back, knees, shoulders, marks of a life spent caring for others. I dropped my purse on the kitchen counter, still trying to process what was happening. The new refrigerator had a silver sheen that seemed to mock my old white fridge, which worked perfectly fine. The smell of something baking filled my nostrils, but instead of comfort, it only brought confusion. "Chloe, what does this mean?" I asked, my voice sounding hoarser than I expected. She adjusted her perfectly dyed hair and walked over to the new fridge. "It's simple, Eleanor. This fridge is mine. That one is yours. What's in mine is mine. What's in yours is yours." She opened the door of the new appliance with a theatrical flourish. "See? All organized." It was then that I saw the yellow, sticky notes plastered on every item inside my own refrigerator. Cheese, milk, eggs, vegetables, all with Chloe written in big black letters. "But I bought all this 3 days ago," I murmured, a lump forming in my throat. "Exactly, and now it's properly identified." She smiled, that smile that never reached her eyes. I got tired of sharing what's mine. So from now on, everyone buys their own. I felt my body tremble, not from fear, but from a cold rage rising up my spine. I bought that food with money from my job, money I earned holding the hands of the dying cleaning wounds, comforting devastated families, all while my daughter-in-law and my son lived under my roof, contributing nothing. "Does Leo know about this?" I asked, referring to my son. As if summoned by his name, Leo appeared in the kitchen doorway. At 36, my only son was the spitting image of the father he lost when he was just 10. But in that moment, I didn't recognize the boy I had raised in his eyes. "I know, Mom," he said, avoiding my gaze. "Chloe's right. It's better to organize things this way. Everyone takes care of their own." I stood there, trapped between my son and his wife, feeling like a stranger in my own home. The house I paid for by myself, working double shifts for years. The house where I mourned the death of my husband, Richard. The house where I patched up Leo's scraped knees, where I celebrated his graduations, where I comforted him through every heartbreak. I understand. It was all I could say before retreating to my bedroom. I closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my hands, rough hands with prominent veins, marked by time and constant work, hands that held my son when he was born, that wiped his tears, that paid every bill for this house. I didn't cry that night. Something inside me had shifted. Through the window, I watched the full moon bathe the garden in its silver light, the same garden I planted alone after Richard died, leaving me with a young son and a mortgage to pay. I didn't sleep. My mind was working, cataloging every moment, every sacrifice, every extra shift to ensure Leo had the best. Every time I stopped myself from buying something for me so he could have new clothes, English lessons, a computer. And now, there he was, a grown man, allowing his wife to treat me like an intruder in my own kitchen. The next morning, I woke up early. I made my coffee in silence, using the grounds that had miraculously, not yet earned a sticky note with Chloe's name. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Leo did his homework for years, and I made a decision. I picked up my phone and called my friend Margaret, a retired lawyer I'd met when she was my patient years ago. "I need your help," I said as soon as she answered. "It's about my house in Oakwood City." Margaret listened quietly as I narrated the events of the previous evening. When I finished, she sighed. "Eleanor, you have two paths, confrontation or strategy. What do you prefer?" "I want my house back," I replied, with a determination I hadn't felt in years, "and I want them to understand the value of respect." "Then let's be strategic," she said firmly. 3 days went by. Days where I maintained my routine, leaving for work, coming home exhausted, watching Chloe and Leo enjoy everything I had built. The new fridge gleamed with expensive foods, wines, imported cheeses, fine cuts of meat. Meanwhile, mine held only the basics I could afford with the little money I had left after paying all the household bills. Bills that, conveniently, were all in my name. On the fourth night, I returned from the hospital earlier than usual. I found Leo and Chloe watching television in the living room, laughing loudly, eating popcorn from a large bowl. Popcorn made in my microwave, in a bowl from my porcelain collection. "Good evening," I said, stopping at the living room door. They glanced at me briefly, murmured a disinterested hello, and turned their attention back to the TV. It was in that moment that I realized it. This wasn't just about food or a refrigerator. It was about respect. It was about gratitude. It was about recognizing sacrifices. And it was in that moment, too, that I decided it was time to show them the true taste of the independence they so desperately craved. The next morning, a Thursday, I didn't go to work. For the first time in years, I called the hospital and requested a personal day. Sarah, my shift colleague, was surprised but didn't question it. I rarely missed a day, even when I was sick. I waited for Leo and Chloe to leave, he to another job interview that would never pan out, she to the hair salon she frequented religiously every week, spending money she didn't have. When the house fell silent, I began my plan. First, I went to my room and pulled out a box of documents I kept at the back of my closet. In it were all the deeds to the house, payment proofs, receipts for renovations. Everything that proved every inch of that place was earned with my sweat. Among the papers, I also found something I hadn't seen in a long time, a document signed by Leo 5 years ago. It was a loan agreement. When he turned 31 and decided he wanted to start his own business, he came to me asking for money. At the time, I sacrificed my retirement savings, $50,000 that took me decades to save. "It's an investment, Mom," he had said with shining eyes. "In 2 years, I'll pay you back with interest." The business, an electronics store, went bankrupt in less than a year. The money vanished, and Leo never mentioned the subject again. And I, like the mother I always was, never pressed him for it. I thought he felt bad enough about the failure, but now, with that document in hand, I realized that perhaps my leniency had been a mistake. Perhaps, by not demanding accountability, I had helped create the ungrateful man my son had become. I scanned the contract and sent it to Margaret, along with all the other important documents. Then I made a detailed inventory of all the household bills from the last 2 years: water, electricity, internet, property taxes, maintenance, insurance, groceries, all paid exclusively by me, while I supported 2 able-bodied adults. Next, I went into Leo and Chloe's room. I knew I shouldn't be there, but I needed to better understand what was happening. On Chloe's nightstand, I found statements from a joint account I didn't know about. Glancing through them, I saw regular deposits from her mother's account, a wealthy woman living abroad. Chloe received a generous allowance every month, money that was clearly not being used to contribute to the household expenses. In a desk drawer, I found something even worse: a real estate brochure with houses for sale in the same neighborhood. One of them was circled, with notes about financing. In the margin, in Chloe's handwriting, I read, "When we sell the old lady's house, our part 70%, Beside it, detailed calculations of how much they could get from selling my house, and how they would use the money to buy a new property, leaving me with only a fraction of its value. My heart hammered in my chest. It wasn't just the labels on the fridge. It was a complete plan to take what was mine, to discard me when I was no longer useful. And my son was in on it. I took pictures of everything with my phone and put the papers back exactly where I found them. I left their room feeling betrayed, but strangely stronger. The rage had given way to determination. My next stop was the office of an old friend, David, an accountant I knew from when he managed the hospital's finances. I showed him the documents and the unpaid loan. What would the current value be, with interest and adjustments? I asked. David did some calculations on his calculator. Based on legal interest rates, it would be around $82,000 today. $82,000. Enough to give me a fresh start away from them, if necessary. And if I wanted to collect this legally? David looked at me over his glasses. Are you sure, Eleanor? We're talking about your son. I'm sure he's my son. What I'm not sure of is if he still remembers that. Before I left, David gave me the name of a lawyer specializing in family and real estate law. If you need to go down that road, Mr. Davies is the best. I returned home with plenty of time to spare. I went to the supermarket and bought a large quantity of food. Not basic items, but special things I knew Leo and Chloe enjoyed. Imported Gorgonzola cheese that she adored, craft beer that he collected, Belgian chocolate, exotic fruits. At home, I began preparing an elaborate dinner. A roast that had been my son's favorite recipe since childhood, accompanied by golden potatoes and steamed vegetables. I also made a sophisticated dessert, tiramisu, which Chloe always praised when we ate at restaurants. I set the table with my best dishes, crystal glasses I received at my wedding, cloth napkins. I put fresh flowers in the center and lit candles. Leo and Chloe arrived as I was finishing the preparations. I saw the astonishment in their eyes when they saw the set table, when they smelled the aroma of the food. "What's all this, Mom?" Leo asked, confused. "A special dinner," I replied with a serene smile. I thought we could talk. Chloe seemed suspicious, but the smell of the food and the sight of the beautifully set table seemed to have calmed her a bit. Smells good," she commented, leaning in to look at the roast. "Go get freshened up and come eat," I suggested. "Everything's ready." While they went upstairs to change, I finished setting the table. Underneath each plate, I placed an envelope. In Leo's, the updated loan agreement with the amount owed. In Chloe's, copies of the photos I took of her plans to sell my house. And at my own place setting, I put a third envelope, a formal notice, drafted by Mr. Davies, giving them 30 days to vacate the property. The table was set not just for dinner, but for the moment of truth that was about to unfold. I poured myself a glass of wine and waited, feeling a strange calm. The bitter taste I'd had for the past few days had transformed into a quiet resolve. It was time for them to learn that respect isn't put on yellow, sticky notes. Respect is earned, cultivated, and when it's lost, it can have bitter consequences. Leo and Chloe came downstairs, laughing about something I couldn't hear. They seemed relaxed, as if the world belonged to them. The sound of their laughter, which should have warmed my mother's heart, now filled me with a mixture of sadness and outrage. How could my son be so oblivious to what he was doing to me? "Wow, Mom, is all this for us?" Leo asked, sitting down at the table. His eyes sparkled at the sight of the abundant food. Chloe sat beside him, adjusting the expensive dress she wore around the house as if it were casual clothing. "Yes," I replied softly. "I thought we deserved a special night." "Any particular occasion?" Chloe asked suspiciously, taking the linen napkin and placing it on her lap. "Let's just say it's a celebration of new beginnings," I answered, pouring wine into their glasses, a pricey Merlot I bought especially for the occasion. "Help yourselves, please." Leo didn't need a second invitation. He filled his plate with generous portions of the roast and sides. Chloe followed, albeit more reservedly, always concerned with appearances. We ate in silence for a few minutes, only the clinking of cutlery on plates filling the room. "This is delicious, Mom," Leo finally commented, already on his second helping. "It's been a while since you made this roast." "It's been a while since we had a reason to celebrate," I replied, barely touching my food. The anxiety of what was to come had stolen my appetite. Chloe noticed my behavior. She was always observant, a quality that could be admirable, if not used primarily to manipulate situations in her favor. "You're acting strange, Eleanor," she said, putting down her fork. "What's really going on?" I took a sip of wine, feeling the liquid warm my throat, giving me courage. "I've been thinking a lot since the refrigerator incident." Leo had the decency to look ashamed, but Chloe maintained her neutral, almost defiant expression. "And I've come to a conclusion," I continued. "You're right." This surprised them. They exchanged quick glances as if trying to figure out where I was going with this conversation. Everyone should be responsible for their own things. It's fair, it's organized, and above all, it's adult. I took another sip of wine. "That's why I prepared a surprise for you." "A surprise?" Leo's voice had that childish tone of expectation I knew from when he was little. He always loved surprises, especially those involving gifts. "Yes, it's under your plates." They looked at each other again, now curious. Leo was the first to lift his plate, finding the brown envelope. Chloe followed his lead more cautiously. "What's this?" Leo asked, opening the envelope. His face changed as he recognized the document in his hands. The loan agreement with the updated values highlighted in fluorescent yellow, the same color as the fridge labels, an intentional choice on my part. "What is this, Mom? This was 5 years ago," he stammered, turning pale. "Exactly. 5 years, 2 months, and 17 days to be precise," I replied calmly. "Enough time for the interest to turn $50,000 into $82,000. Chloe snatched the paper from Leo's hands, her eyes quickly scanning the numbers. "You can't be serious," she hissed. "Oh, but I am. And you should check your envelope, Chloe. I'm sure you'll find it revealing." She tore open the envelope with trembling fingers. When she saw the photos of her own plans, her face flushed with rage and shame. "You were snooping through our things?" she accused, slamming her hands on the table, making the cutlery rattle. "Just like you snooped through my refrigerator, my food, my life." My voice remained calm, which seemed to infuriate her even more. "Mom, we can talk about this," Leo tried, his tone pleading. "That business went south, you know that. I was planning to pay you back when you sold my house?" I interrupted. "When you kicked me out with my 30% share, as your wife so generously planned?" Leo looked at Chloe in shock. What is she talking about? "Don't play innocent, Leo," Chloe shot back. "We talked about it. The house is too big for her alone. It would make more sense to sell it and for everyone to go their own way." "But we never talked about percentages or—" He stopped, realizing he was incriminating himself further, or cheating me. I finished for him. "Of taking what is mine by right, what I built alone after your father died and left me with a young son and bills to pay." The silence that followed was heavy. No one was touching their food anymore. The roast was getting cold on the plates, just like the atmosphere between us. "And there's more," I said finally, picking up my own envelope. "Since we're being so organized with what belongs to whom—" I handed the document to Leo. His hands trembled as he opened it. Chloe craned her neck to read along with him. "An eviction notice," he read, incredulous. "Mom, you can't be serious." 30 days, I replied. "The lawyer said it's more than enough, considering you have no formal rental agreement and don't contribute financially to the upkeep of the house." Chloe stood up abruptly, knocking over her wine glass. The red liquid spread across the white tablecloth like blood. "You can't do this. We're your family." "Family?" I raised an eyebrow. "Family respects. Family contributes. Family doesn't put labels on food they didn't pay for or make plans to sell the old lady's house, as you so affectionately call me behind my back. Leo also stood up, his face a mask of desperation. Mom, please, let's talk. We don't have to go this far. I remained seated, surprisingly calm. I'm tired of empty conversations, Leo. I'm tired of being treated like a nuisance in my own home, of working to support two perfectly capable adults who show no gratitude or respect. This is all your fault, Chloe yelled at Leo. You said your mom would never do this, that she always gave in. And I always did give in, I confirmed. That was my mistake. I let you think you could take everything without giving anything in return. We can't leave in 30 days, Leo argued, desperate. We have nowhere to go. Chloe's parents have that empty apartment downtown, I suggested. The one you mentioned when you were discussing sending me to a nursing home. Chloe's eyes widened. You heard that too? I heard enough. I finally stood up, picking up my almost untouched plate. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to retire. Feel free to finish dinner. After all, it was prepared with food I paid for with my money in my kitchen. Enjoy it while you can. I walked to the kitchen door and turned one last time. Oh, and Leo, that roast was always your favorite, but you never realized I hate cooking it. The smell gets into my hands for days. But I did it anyway, because I loved you more than you'll ever understand. I went up the stairs to my room, hearing the heated argument erupting between them. Accusations, recriminations, the sound of something else breaking. I didn't care. I closed the door, lay down on my bed, and for the first time in days, I slept deeply, with the clear conscience of someone who had finally taken back control of her own life. The next morning, I woke up to the sun peeking through the blinds. For a moment, I was confused about what had happened, as if it had all been just an intense dream. But then, I heard doors slamming downstairs and raised voices. Reality came crashing back. I got up, took a long shower, and dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that made me feel confident. Black slacks, a petrol blue silk blouse, a string of pearls Richard had given me on our last wedding anniversary. I looked in the mirror and saw not just the tired nurse or the betrayed mother, but a woman determined to reclaim her dignity. I walked down the stairs slowly, each step an exercise in control. The kitchen was a mess. Dirty dishes from last night's dinner, wine stains on the tablecloth, leftover food. Apparently no one had bothered to clean up. Leo was sitting at the table, his head in his hands, looking like he hadn't slept. He looked up when he saw me. "Mom," he started, his voice hoarse. "Good morning, Leo," I replied neutrally, heading for the coffee maker. I made sure to take the coffee from the bag that had a yellow, sticky note with Chloe's name on it, a small act of rebellion. "About last night," he tried again. "Where's Chloe?" I interrupted, preparing my cup. "She left early, went to her parents' house." He hesitated. "We're in trouble, Mom." I imagine so. I sat down across from him, holding my cup between us like a small barrier. 30 days isn't a long time to find a new place. It's not just that. He seemed genuinely distressed. Chloe is furious. She says she's going to sue me if the house thing doesn't work out. Sue you? I raised an eyebrow. The house is in my name, Leo, exclusively. I know, but... He ran his hands through his hair in a nervous gesture. We had plans, promises, plans made at my expense, without my knowledge or consent, I pointed out. That has no legal value whatsoever, but there's a bigger problem. He bit his lip, hesitant. That money you lent me, I have no way to pay it back. That's not new, I replied calmly, taking a sip of coffee. No, Mom, you don't understand. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. After the business failed, I got into some debt. I tried to win the money back with investments. I put down my cup. What kind of investments? Gambling. Online betting. He couldn't look me in the eye. I thought I could multiply the value quickly and pay you back, but you lost it all, I finished, a knot tightening in my chest, not for the money itself, but for the revelation that my son had a problem I didn't even suspect. How long has this been going on? 3 years, more or less, he confessed. Chloe didn't know at first. When she found out, she was furious. That's when we started planning other alternatives, like convincing me to sell the house. He nodded, ashamed. The idea was to pay off my debts with the sale money and buy a smaller place for the 3 of us. For the 3 of us, I repeated incredulously. Even after you planned to send me to a nursing home? That was Chloe's idea, he defended. I never agreed with that, but you didn't shut it down, apparently. I stood up, unable to sit any longer. Leo, how much exactly do you owe? He mumbled a figure that made me stagger. Almost $120,000 between banks, loan sharks, and betting platforms. An amount he could never hope to repay with the temporary jobs he occasionally landed. That's why Chloe is so desperate, he explained. The collectors started calling, showing up. She's scared. I leaned against the kitchen counter, trying to process it all. My son wasn't just ungrateful, he was in deep trouble. And somehow I had become responsible for saving him again. What are you going to do? I finally asked. I don't know. For the first time since the conversation began, I saw tears in his eyes. I'm scared, Mom. A part of me wanted to hug him, to tell him everything would be okay, that Mom would fix it all like she always did. But that part was weakened by the betrayal, by the discovered plans, by the yellow, sticky notes on the fridge. I'm going to the hospital now, I announced, grabbing my purse. I have a shift until tomorrow. When I get back, I want you to have a plan. A real plan. No more fantasies of taking what's mine. But Mom... No, Leo. But Mom is over. You're 36 years old. If you're mature enough to rack up $120,000 in gambling debt, you're mature enough to find a solution. I left the house feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. On the way to the hospital, I called Margaret. The problems are bigger than we thought, I said as soon as she answered. Tell me everything, she replied. And I did. What should I do, Margaret? He's my son. I can't just abandon him. No, you can't, she agreed. But you can't let yourself be dragged into the hole he dug either. I parked in the hospital garage, still on the phone. I'm scared of what will happen to him, Margaret. Gambling is a disease. Yes, it is. And as a nurse, you know that some diseases need specialized treatment, not just motherly care. Her words hit me with the force of truth. Throughout my career, I had guided families to seek professional help for their loved ones. Why was it so hard to follow my own advice? I'll think about what to do, I said finally. Thanks for listening. That shift was one of the hardest of my life. Not because of the medical emergencies. I knew how to handle those with decades of experience. The hard part was staying focused when my own life seemed to be falling apart. Between sutures and medications, my mind kept returning to Leo, to his debts, to the betrayal. Carol, my shift partner of over 20 years, noticed my distraction. Eleanor, you're pale. Did something happen? I hesitated for a moment. I was never one to share personal problems at work, but the burden was too heavy to carry alone. Trouble at home, I finally admitted. My son has gambling debts. Carol put a hand on my shoulder. How much? $120,000. She took a sharp breath. And let me guess, you're thinking about how to save him? I nodded, ashamed. Eleanor, she said with the firmness she used with difficult patience. Do you remember that case from last year? The young man who came in after being beaten by loan sharks? How could I forget? A man in his 30s with multiple fractures, internal bleeding. We fought for hours to save him. His mother paid off his debts 3 times, Carol continued. Each time he promised to stop. Each time he went back to betting, until she had nothing left to sell, no house, no car. She ended up living with her daughter in a tiny apartment while her son continued to sink. I felt a chill. It was like hearing a premonition of my own future. What happened to him after he left here? He went into a rehab program. He's been clean for 8 months. But you know what he told me when he came for a follow-up? That he only started taking recovery seriously when he realized no one else would pay for his mistakes. Her words stayed with me for the rest of the shift. When I finally left the hospital 36 hours later, I had made a decision. It wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. At home, I found Leo alone, watching TV in the living room. The house was still a mess. Dirty dishes in the sink, clothes strewn about. He hadn't even bothered to clean up. "Chloe didn't come back?" I asked, dropping my purse on the sofa. "No," he replied without taking his eyes off the TV. "She said she's only coming back when I solve the situation, as if it were easy." I turned off the television, forcing him to look at me. "We need to talk." He sighed, irritated by the interruption of his apparent lethargy. "If this is about last night, Mom, I already told you I have no way to pay that money now. It's not about the money, Leo. It's about you, about your gambling problem." His face hardened. "I don't have a problem. I just had some bad luck a few times. 120,000 in debt isn't bad luck, son. It's an addiction." He stood up defensively. "Look, if you came to give me a sermon—" "I'm here to offer you a choice," I interrupted. "A single opportunity." That got his attention. He fell silent, waiting for me to continue. Option 1. You seek treatment for gambling addiction. You find a job, any job, and you start paying off your debts on your own. I will allow you to stay here for 3 months without Chloe while you get back on your feet. And option 2? He asked, suspicious. You leave in 30 days as stated in the notice, and you solve your problems alone, without my help, without my money, without my roof. That's not a fair choice, he protested. How am I supposed to pay $120,000 working where? As a gas station attendant? I don't know, Leo, but I know I'm not selling my house to pay off gambling debts, nor will I compromise my retirement for someone who isn't willing to help himself. He looked at me, incredulous. You talk as if I were a stranger. I'm your son. Yes, you are. And because you're my son, you owe me more than lies and manipulation. I kept my voice firm, though my heart was breaking. Think about your options. I want an answer tomorrow. I went up to my room, closing the door behind me. I heard Leo shout something downstairs, followed by the sound of breaking glass. I didn't go down to check. I was setting boundaries for the first time in decades, and it wasn't going to be easy for either of us. That night, as I tried to sleep, I remembered Leo as a child. The boy who would run into my arms during thunderstorms, who made me wobbly cards on Mother's Day, who looked at me with admiration when I came home from the hospital in my white uniform. Where was that boy now? Lost in bets and lies, in plans to take what was mine, in yellow sticky notes on the refrigerator? The tears came silently, soaking my pillow. I cried not just for the son I was losing, but for the mother I had been. Too permissive, too blind, always ready to sacrifice everything for someone who didn't value those sacrifices. But at dawn, as the first rays of sun entered through the window, I felt a strange peace. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in a long time, I felt I was doing the right thing, not just for me, but for Leo too. A week had passed since the night I gave Leo his options. 7 days of almost unbearable tension, where we coexisted in the same house like polite strangers. He didn't give me his answer the next day as I had asked, or the day after. The silence stretched on, broken only by occasional greetings when we passed each other in the house. Chloe didn't return. I learned from Leo that she was at her parents' house, waiting for things to be resolved. I translated that mentally, waiting for me to give in, as I always had. On the 8th day, a rainy Thursday, I came home from my shift to find Leo sitting at the kitchen table. In front of him was a manila envelope and a cup of coffee. He looked like he had aged years in just 1 week. Deep dark circles under his eyes, an unshaven beard, his shoulders slumped under the invisible weight of his choices. "Mom," he said when he saw me, his voice hoarse, "can we talk?" I nodded, hanging my damp coat on the hook by the door. I poured myself some coffee and sat across from him. I called some rehab clinics, he began, pushing the envelope toward me. This one in Crestview has a specific program for gambling addicts. 28 days inpatient, then outpatient, follow-up. I opened the envelope, surprised. Inside were brochures and forms from a reputable clinic specializing in addiction. It wasn't cheap. The treatment cost nearly $8,000, a considerable sum, but not impossible. "How do you plan to pay for this?" I asked, browsing the documents. I sold my car. He avoided my gaze. It didn't cover everything, but I made an agreement to pay the rest in installments. The surprise must have been evident on my face because he quickly added, "I know it doesn't seem like much compared to what I owe, but it's a start." He hesitated. "And I also applied for some jobs. Nothing extraordinary, but they're honest jobs." I studied my son's face, searching for signs of manipulation, the same act he used to put on as a child to get what he wanted. But what I saw was something different. Genuine shame, regret, and maybe, just maybe, the first glimmer of responsibility. "When do you start?" I finally asked. "If you agree to option 1, letting me stay for 3 months while I get myself together, I can check into the clinic on Monday. And Chloe?" His face contorted in a pained expression. "We broke up. Or rather, she broke up with me when she found out I sold the car. She said she wouldn't stick with a loser with no prospects." I felt a pang of compassion, quickly followed by a thought that shamed me. Good riddance. "I'm sorry," I said anyway, because it was my son who was hurting, regardless of the circumstances. He shrugged, trying to appear indifferent, but I saw the pain in his eyes. "Maybe it's for the best. She never really loved me, only what I could provide her, or what she thought I could. And your debts? They're still there," he sighed. "But I spoke with a lawyer specializing in gambling debt. He said we can negotiate with the legitimate creditors. As for the others, it will be more complicated but not impossible." I nodded slowly. It was more initiative than he had shown in years. "And what about the money you owe me?" Leo swallowed hard. "I want to pay you back too, Mom. Not now, obviously, but eventually. The lawyer suggested including it in the payment plan after the more urgent debts are under control." I took a sip of my now lukewarm coffee, pondering. A part of me, the wounded mother, the betrayed woman, wanted to remain harsh, to demand everything at once. But another part, the nurse who had seen so many people fight to recover, recognized the signs of someone genuinely trying to change. 3 months, I said finally. "You can stay for 3 months while you undergo treatment and look for work, but there are conditions. What are they?" He seemed relieved, almost hopeful. "First, no Chloe here, not even for visits." He nodded quickly. "That won't be a problem. Second, you're going to contribute to the household expenses, no matter how small the amount at first. Fair. Third, Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice a week, no exceptions." He hesitated briefly, but agreed. "Okay. And finally," I continued, "I want to see your bank statements every month. Any sign of betting, any penny spent on gambling, and the deal is off." Leo took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "I agree to everything." He paused. "And there's one more thing." I raised my eyebrows, waiting. I wanted to... He cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. "I wanted to apologize, not just for the debts or the plans with Chloe, but for everything. For being an ungrateful son, for letting her put labels on your food, for forgetting everything you did for me." I remained silent, letting him continue. "When Dad died, you could have sent me to my grandmother's, moved on with your life. But you worked 3 jobs, slept 4 hours a night for years, all so I could have a good life." His voice broke. "And how did I repay you? By bringing home a woman who disrespected you in your own house, by planning to sell the roof you built, by being a monster." Tears were now streaming freely down his face. Not the manipulative tears I had seen so many times, but the genuine weeping of someone confronting the truth about himself. "I don't know if you can forgive me," he continued, "or if I deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I am truly sorry, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the son you deserve." Something inside me broke, not from pain, but from relief, like a wound finally being cleaned after being infected for so long. "Leo," I said softly, "I don't want the rest of your life. I just want you to build a life for yourself, an honest, responsible, dignified life. That will be reward enough for me." He nodded, wiping his tears with the back of his hands, just like he did when he was a boy. "I'll do it, Mom, I promise." "Don't promise me," I replied, standing up. "Promise yourself." In the days that followed, I saw Leo mobilize like never before. He arranged his admission to the clinic. He went to job interviews. He attended his first Gamblers Anonymous meeting. It was strange to see him take on responsibilities he had avoided for so long. A part of me expected it to be just a phase, that he would soon revert to his old habits. But another part, perhaps the part that never stopped believing in him, began to nurture a faint hope. The morning he left for the clinic in Crestview, I helped him pack a small bag. Basic clothes, toiletries, a few books he liked. He looked so vulnerable, so young again that I had to fight the urge to say, "Don't go, stay, we'll figure it out another way." But I knew there was no other way. Some paths have to be walked alone, no matter how painful. "Are you sure you don't want me to drive you?" I asked as he zipped up the bag. "I'm sure. I need to do this myself." He hesitated before adding, "But thank you for offering." When the taxi arrived, I walked him to the door. Impulsively, he hugged me, a tight, desperate hug, as if he were holding on for dear life. "I'm going to make you proud of me, Mom," he murmured against my hair. "I know you will," I replied, and I realized I actually believed it. After he left, I went back to the kitchen and looked at the two refrigerators side by side. Chloe's, still full of expensive products, now slowly spoiling. Mine, with basic food items, some still with yellow sticky notes on them. On an impulse, I opened Chloe's fridge and started taking everything out. Imported cheeses, expensive wines, gourmet yogurts. I separated what was still good and could be donated. I threw away what had already gone bad. Then I took a knife and began scraping the yellow labels off my own fridge, one by one. Each removed label felt like a weight being lifted off my shoulders. When I was done, I looked at the small pile of yellow papers in my hand, physical symbols of the disrespect I had tolerated for so long. I walked to the backyard, took a match, and burned them all in a small metal can. As the flames consumed that bright yellow, I felt a strange sensation spread through my chest, a mix of relief, determination, and surprisingly, hope. There, watching the labels turn to ash, I understood that this wasn't just the story of an ungrateful son or a manipulative daughter-in-law. It was the story of a woman learning at 64 that respect is not begged for, it is demanded, and that sometimes the deepest love we can show is to set firm boundaries, even when it hurts, even when it's hard, when everything in us wants to give in. The 28 days Leo spent at the rehab clinic in Crestview passed more quickly than I had imagined. Without him and Chloe in the house, I rediscovered the pleasure of silence, the peace of living at my own pace. For the first time in years, the house was truly mine. No labels, no tension, no constant feeling of being judged in my own space. I took the opportunity to make changes I had long desired. I painted the living room a soft shade of sage green, so different from the bland beige Chloe had insisted was more elegant. I rearranged the furniture, donated clothes I no longer wore, planted new flowers in the garden. Small acts of reclamation that gave me back not only control of the physical space, but also of my own life. At the hospital, my colleagues noticed the change. "You're glowing, Eleanor," Carol commented during a break. "What happened?" I'm learning to put myself first, I replied, surprising myself with the simplicity and depth of that statement. Visits to the clinic were only allowed on Sundays. On the first one, I was shocked by Leo's appearance. Pale, with deep, dark circles, trembling slightly. The withdrawal from gambling, his therapist explained, could be as physical as that of any substance. It's like my brain is screaming for that rush, Leo confessed during our supervised conversation. I never realized how addicted I was until I tried to stop. In the following visits, I saw gradual improvements. His skin regained its color. The trembling lessened. His eyes regained some of their light. More importantly, he began to speak more clearly about his problem, without the excuses and rationalizations of before. The therapist says, I used gambling to escape, he explained on our third visit. Escape from expectations, from responsibility, from the fear of not being good enough. Fear of not being good enough for whom? I asked. He hesitated. For you, mainly. That hit me like a punch to the gut. Leo, It's not something you did consciously, Mom, he interrupted gently. It's just that you were always so competent, so strong. Head nurse, single mother, homeowner. It felt like a standard I could never reach. I never wanted you to feel that way, I murmured, realizing how my own actions, however well-intentioned, had contributed to his insecurities. I know, and I'm not blaming you. It's just an explanation, not an excuse. He smiled slightly. I'm learning to tell the difference between the two. In his final week at the clinic, Leo gave me surprising news. He had found a job. It was nothing grand, an administrative assistant at a small logistics company in Crestview, but it was a start, a steady salary, a chance to rebuild. I start as soon as I get out, he said, obviously proud. It's not much, but it's enough to contribute to the house expenses and start negotiating my debts. On the day of his discharge, I went to pick him up. When he got in the car, he looked like a different person, not just physically recovered, but with a different presence, more centered, more mature. Thanks for coming, he said, buckling his seatbelt. Of course I'd come. No, Mom, thank you for coming through when I really needed you, for not giving up on me. I smiled, starting the engine. We're family, Leo. Real family doesn't give up. Even after everything I did, especially after everything you did. I glanced at him briefly before turning my attention back to the road, because now we know exactly where our boundaries are. The reintegration wasn't easy. Despite the intensive treatment, Leo still faced temptation daily. He installed blockers on his phone to prevent access to betting sites. He gave me his credit card to hold on to. He religiously attended Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice a week, and there were the debts. A seemingly insurmountable mountain. The lawyer specializing in gambling debt managed to negotiate with the official creditors, banks, finance companies, credit cards. The payments were reduced and stretched out over years, but they were manageable with his new salary as long as he lived frugally. The unofficial creditors, loan sharks, underground betting houses, were more complicated. Some accepted agreements through legal intermediaries. Others made threats. One particularly tense night, we received an intimidating visit from two men demanding immediate payment. You have 1 week, the taller one said, looking around the living room as if assessing what he could take, or we'll be back to collect what's ours, with interest. After they left, Leo was pale, trembling like in the early days at the clinic. I'm so sorry, Mom. I never wanted to bring this danger to you. That same night, I called Mr. Davies, the lawyer who had helped me with the eviction notice. I need your help with a more serious problem, I explained, recounting the intimidating visit. 2 days later, Mr. Davies and a private investigator he worked with held a meeting with the men who threatened us. I don't know exactly what was said, but they never came back. Mr. Davies only commented enigmatically. Sometimes, the threat of public exposure is more effective than anything else for certain types of business. Months passed. Leo kept his job, contributed to expenses, attended meetings. Little by little, I saw my son re-emerge as the man I had always hoped he would become: responsible, aware, mature. Chloe tried to come back once when she heard that Leo was employed and getting his life together. She showed up at the house one Sunday afternoon, all smiles and rehearsed apologies. "I was hasty," she said, standing at the front door. "All couples go through rough patches, don't they?" Leo looked at her for a long moment. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the attraction he still felt, the temptation to return to the familiar no matter how toxic. "Chloe," he said finally, "you put yellow sticky notes on my mother's food. You planned to sell her house without her knowledge. You called me a loser when I needed support the most." He shook his head. "There's no coming back from that." She instantly switched tactics. The smile turned into a hard expression. "You think you're going to get someone better than me? An administrative assistant with a six-figure debt? I don't know what I'm going to get," he said, "but I know what I no longer want in my life." He closed the door gently but firmly. Later that night, I found Leo in the backyard looking at the stars. I sat next to him on the bench Richard had built so many years ago. "Are you okay?" I asked, offering him a cup of tea. "Strangely, I am." He accepted the drink, his fingers brushing against mine. For a moment, when I saw her, all those feelings came back. Not love, but familiarity. Like a song you don't like, but you know the lyrics by heart. "I understand." "You know what I realized, Mom? That I'm no longer willing to trade respect for familiarity. Not for me and not for you." I looked at my son under the silvery moonlight, noticing the firm line of his jaw, the new dignity in his eyes, and I felt a surge of pride, not for something I had done, but for the man he was choosing to become. "The 3 months are up next week," I commented casually, though we were both well aware of the date. Leo nodded. "I've already started looking for a place. There's a guy from Georgia who needs a roommate in Crestview. You don't have to go, you know." The words escaped before I could stop them. He smiled. "Yes, I do, Mom. Not because you don't want me here, but because it's time. In fact, it's past time." We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our tea, contemplating the starry sky. It was a comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who have finally found a true balance. "Thank you," he said finally. "For what?" "For letting me fall." It was the only way I could learn to get up. A year has passed since Leo moved out. He didn't go far, just to a modest apartment 20 minutes away, which he shares with his colleague from Gamblers Anonymous. We maintain a routine: Sunday dinners at my house, calls during the week, occasional texts just to say hello. This new dynamic has brought us closer than when we lived under the same roof. Without the pressures of daily cohabitation, without the tensions built up over years of unfulfilled expectations, we are rediscovering each other as adults. Me, as a woman beyond the role of mother. He, as a man beyond the role of a troubled son. Today is a different Sunday. Leo is coming for our usual dinner, but this time he's bringing someone. A friend, he said on the phone, with a tone that suggested more than that. It's the first time he's mentioned a woman since Chloe, and I can't deny a certain apprehension. I prepare the house carefully, not overly so as to seem like I'm trying to impress, but enough to show I value the occasion. I make lasagna, Leo's childhood favorite, and a fresh salad with vegetables from my own garden, which has become my refuge in these months of rediscovery. At 6 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rings. Leo was never punctual until recently. Another small sign of his transformation. When I open the door, I see my son smiling, a bottle of wine in his hand, and next to him, a middle-aged woman with short brown hair and a shy smile. "Mom, this is Clara," he says, with a quiet pride in his voice. "Clara, my mother, Eleanor." "It's a pleasure to finally meet you," Clara says, extending her hand. Her handshake is firm, her eyes meeting mine without hesitation. "Leo talks a lot about you." "I hope good things," I reply, inviting them in. "The best," she assures, handing me a small vase of violets. "I heard you like plants." The dinner flows with a naturalness that surprises me. Clara is not what I expected, not too young, not dazzled by appearances like Chloe. She's 42, a high school history teacher, divorced with no children. She met Leo at a book club at the municipal library 6 months ago. He was reading The Old Man and the Sea, she recounts, looking at him fondly. I found it interesting to see a man his age so absorbed in Hemingway. I usually only see that in my students when I force them to read it. Leo laughs. It was part of my therapy. Reading stories about perseverance, about fighting on even when all seems lost. I observe their interaction throughout dinner. The way he looks at her, not with that desperate dependence he had with Chloe, but with respect and admiration. The way she listens when he speaks, attentive and present. They are small, subtle gestures, but they reveal something that brings me a deep sense of relief, a relationship built on healthy foundations. When we serve dessert, an apple pie I made that morning, Clara asks about my work at the hospital. It's the first time in years someone has shown genuine interest in what I do. Chloe never asked. She always steered the conversation back to herself at the slightest sign it might not revolve around her. Leo mentioned you're thinking about retiring, Clara comments as we sip our coffee. I'm considering it, I admit. After 40 years, my body is starting to complain about the long shifts. And what do you plan to do after? She seems genuinely curious. The question catches me off guard. I've been so focused on surviving, on working, on caring for others, that I've barely stopped to think about what I really want for myself. I'm not sure, I answer honestly. Maybe travel a bit. There are so many places I've never seen. My mom always dreamed of visiting the south of Italy, Leo chimes in, the land of her grandparents. Really? Clara brightens. I lived in Naples for 2 years when I was doing my master's. It's absolutely wonderful. She begins to describe the small seaside villages, the unparalleled taste of homemade food, the warm hospitality of the Italians. Her eyes sparkle as she recalls her experiences, and I find myself captivated by her stories, imagining myself walking those cobblestone streets she describes so lovingly. You should go, she says finally. If there's a dream worth pursuing after a lifetime of work, it's that one. In that moment, something crystallizes within me, a certainty that it's time to live for myself. Not selfishly or neglectfully, but in the fullest sense of self-care and self-realization. Later, as Leo and Clara are about to leave, my son hugs me tighter than usual. Thanks for dinner, Mom. It was a pleasure. Clara is special. I can't find better words, but he understands. Yes, she is. He smiles, and I see something in that smile I haven't seen in a long time. Peace. And you know what else she is? Someone who wouldn't mind at all sharing her apartment with me. No yellow labels, no power games, just companionship. That's wonderful, Leo. It's different from anything I've ever known. He hesitates. Actually, I came here today not just to introduce you, but also to tell you some news. I was promoted. Nothing extraordinary, just coordinator of the administrative team, but it means a better salary. I'm so proud of you, and that means I can start paying you back. For real. I frown, confused. Paying me back? The loan money. He pulls an envelope from his pocket. This is the first of many. It's not much, but it's a start. I look at the envelope, a lump forming in my throat. Not because of the amount, which I know is modest, but because of the symbolism of that gesture, the promise fulfilled, the responsibility assumed, the respect demonstrated, not through words, but through concrete actions. Son, this can wait, I say, touching his arm. You have other priorities now. No, Mom. His tone is gentle but firm. This is a priority. It always will be. Because it's not just about money. It's about honoring my word. It's about showing you every day that your sacrifice was not in vain. I accept the envelope, recognizing the importance of that moment for his recovery and for our relationship. After they leave, I sit on the porch with a glass of wine, contemplating the night sky. I think about how life turns, How from a painful situation, like the labels on the fridge, a complete transformation of our family dynamic emerged. I opened the envelope Leo gave me. Inside, besides the modest check, is a handwritten note, the first of many. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I love you, Mom. The tears come, silent but liberating. They are not tears of sadness or even of pure joy. They are tears of acknowledgement of the long, arduous road we traveled, of the wounds that are still healing, of the new and promising journey that lies ahead. That night, I make two decisions. First, on Monday, I will talk to my boss at the hospital about my retirement. 40 years is enough. It's time to live the years I have left to the fullest. Second, I will use part of the money I've saved to fulfill my dream of seeing Italy, not because I deserve a reward after everything I've been through, but because I finally understand that caring for others begins with caring for oneself. And as I put Leo's note in my memory box, I feel an unexpected gratitude for those yellow, sticky notes on the refrigerator. They were painful, humiliating, cruel, but they were also the catalyst that woke me up, that forced me to set boundaries, that transformed not only my son, but myself. Sometimes it's the greatest wounds that bring about the most profound transformations, and sometimes you have to endure the bitter taste of disrespect to rediscover the sweet flavor of true love, the kind that doesn't smother, doesn't control, doesn't diminish, but elevates, liberates, and dignifies. Now, if you like this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments what part left your jaw on the floor. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos I don't post here. I'll see you there. See you